Hi everybody, how are you? I hope you've been enjoying our discussions of the art of dying, which is intended to help you live better, actually. It's not urging you to die, but be clear about that. One time I was giving a conference in this very room here at Menla Mountain Retreat. The Tibet House US is, Tibetan Healing Center, let's call it, up in the Catskill Mountains. And one lady who was present as I was talking about the Book of the Dead, she said, "Oh, Bob, you make dying sound like so much fun. I can't wait to try it." And I urged her not to think like that, because there's no rush. It's going to happen, of course, as all of you who are here know, and you are looking into the art of it. But there's no need to rush. And Tibetans also have lots of methods of longevity. And they cherish human life. Above all, we must be clear about that. When we talk about the Tibetan art of dying, we have to be aware that it's not to rush the job. It's to prolong life as much as possible, because this human life that we have is so incredibly precious and valuable. And it's the kind of life in which we have the intelligence of a deity, but we have the vulnerability of an animal. And therefore, we are very concerned about dying and death and the quality of life. And so this is the best kind of life within which to discover an understanding that enables us to have a very high quality of life. And in a way, that's what the art of dying is about. Really, it's the art of living as well. It's the Tibetan book of the dying, which was wrongly entitled, is actually the true title of it is the Book of Natural Liberation Through Hearing in the Between States. And actually, the dying state is not the only between state. There are many other between states. And so that's what we're talking about this morning. Now, what I wanted to say about it, and my piece in this movement, I am so happy, by the way, that there are so many wonderful experts on the art of dying and coming from so many different traditions in this wonderful conference that we have put together. And I'm very delighted to have Roshi Joan, Halifax, and Frank Ostaseski, and many other, and Alberto Villoldo, and many other wonderful people who have a great experience of helping people pass and how to do it well and so on, and which I don't claim to have had myself. But in a way, indirectly, I have, because the book that I did has reached a lot of millions, actually, of people, because I made it as user-friendly as possible, which was the book that was wrongly, been translated for some time, but was wrongly entitled Book of the Dead. But it isn't. That's the wrong title, because the whole book is based on the idea that there are no dead people. Nobody stays dead. Death is nothing but a quick transition. You know, it's like if you had the book of the doorway, you know, in a way, what's a doorway between, say, two spaces? You know, actually, you're either in one space or another if you really think of what a doorway is. There's the doorway, like a line, has no width, to be exact, right? So the doorway means you're either in this room and then you're suddenly in that room. And the doorway itself is not a place. It's just an arbitrary line that we draw, right? And it isn't even a rectangular line where there's a space on the width of the line. A perfect line has no width, you know that. Okay, it's one of these paradoxes of life. So it's the book of natural liberation. Being liberated within nature is through hearing and learning about the nature of life, which you can understand in the between. That's what really the title is. And then when you say in the between, in the bardo, remember? There's even a book, it's so well known in English, the Tibetan term bardo, that you have this novel, Lincoln in the Bardo, which I was so pleased to see. It means that the Tibetan knowledge is becoming part of the culture, okay? But I did my translation only because I don't like people saying intermediate state. I never liked that. The between, bardo just means a gap between, you know, between two things, bardo. So between is the English word. And it could be the name of a dance program or a song, the between, you know, I'm in the between, you know. Meanwhile, the only between is not the after death between, or the death point. There's a death point between, there's an after death between, and there's a coming to rebirth between. Those are the three that happen between birth, death and rebirth. However, there are other betweens. We're right now together here in the life between. And within the life between, there are further betweens. Namely, there is the dream between. So in other words, when you fall deeply asleep and you rise in a dream, then you're in a between state between having been unconscious in the dream, which is like being dead. It's like the death transition because you have no self-awareness, so there's no time in it. And then you rise in the dream where you begin to have experiences and you have an environment that actually your own mind creates itself. And then you rise from the dream and you wake up into your waking consciousness, and that's like being reborn. So the dream between is like the between time between, and then so it's called the dream between. And then the last between, the sixth between, in the between teaching, is the meditation between. And that means you go into meditation, you leave your habitual sense of self-presence and self-identity if you become a little more expert at it, but in a way you do no matter who you are. You sort of leave your sort of normal way you face the world, run around and do things based on a certain inner narrative. You start to question your inner narrative, and you go into self-exploration or exploration of a topic about the nature of the world, like a scientist does in a lab seeking to know the reality of something. Those are the two kinds of things you do in what are called the meditation between. So there are 6 betweens, and I thought I would comment on that. But before I do that, I want to put it in context. So I said that now Frank Ostaseski and a large movement in America, and Roshi Joan Halifax and others, have worked a lot with people in the hospice situation. And the hospice situation is a sign of the maturity, this gradual maturing of our culture. Because basically the immaturity of our culture is where people live in denial that they're going to die. They act like they're always going to be there, they're always going to be driving their Cadillac, they're always going to be owning their house or their houses, they're always going to be owning their face, actually, which they keep patching up as they get older. And whatever, you know, they seek like some elixir of immortality or something to sort of stay the same identity that they think they have an unchanging identity, which we don't have. We have a growing or decaying identity, one or the other, you know, in reality. But anyway, our culture was based on just getting rid of somebody. Don't tell children that Uncle Joe died. Say he went to Paris or something. You know, it's like denial of death. And therefore death is made into a big boogeyman, and everybody's scared of it, and therefore they're scared to live. They're only half alive. In a way, you become the living dead when all you're obsessed about is avoiding the idea that you're going to change dramatically, which is all that death is a moment of dramatic change, at least in the scientific worldview coming from ancient India, which may be a preferable scientific worldview we will all see sooner or later when we figure things out. But at the moment, we are being matured so that we have a thing called a hospice. And the reason I say that's a maturity is it means that doctors, instead of going absolutely crazy and keeping someone in a hospital and tubing them and doing whatever they can and trying to make Frankensteins out of them, they do finally realize in some cases we should just bag it. And then the question is the quality of the dying, the quality of leaving the body. But of course, they don't think you're leaving the body. They just think you become, because they have the materialist idea that you automatically just go into an anesthetic state and you become nothing. And that is, of course, that's not a bad thing to do. In a way, I kind of like that they came up with that a few hundred years ago. Actually, there was someone saying that even in Buddha's day, 2,500 years ago. And there have always been a few people who bravely assert that I don't have this soul that God can send to hell, and therefore I'm going to just be nothing, and therefore I'm going to live in a free way. I'm not going to be scared of God or of the high priest or of whoever the king is or the authorities, you know. And it's kind of brave of a person to do that, even though it's also, unfortunately, a little unrealistic, since there's never been anybody who actually verified whether or not it's possible to be nothing. All we've done to verify it is we fall asleep every night and we go unconscious, or we get hit on the head and we faint, and then we have no consciousness. and it feels like nothing in terms of our awakeness, our awareness, okay? So that's maybe a verification, but the problem with that is we keep on waking up. And we dream even when we sleep. So there's no way that we verify, okay, now I'm nothing, then we come back to something and report on it. Like what I finally did after 30 years of debating with my materialist colleagues in university, the natural science types, and all of those who grovel to them and cater to them because they get paid better. And I never challenged them in the proper way. It took me 35 years, probably about, of my 50 years of teaching, official professoring, to finally ask them, okay guys, you are empirical scientists. You don't go for dogmas and for theories, right? You look at the data, right? Okay, which one of you got the Nobel Prize for discovering nothing? And reported back, and then got the Nobel Prize for this momentous discovery, then therefore having a scientific basis on which to assure yourselves and everyone else that they're going to be nothing, just by their heart stopping and their brain going flatline. Which one of you got the Nobel Prize for that? And actually, they go like this, like, you know, roll their eyes like when someone is trying to think of like, who did get it? Maybe a mathematician who looked at zero. No, nobody got it. And why? Even your common sense will tell you. Nobody's ever going to discover nothing because nothing isn't there. And there's no there. And there's no one who could go there because it isn't a place. So every something becomes something else. Now they know that, and they say that with their second law of thermodynamics. No energy is ever destroyed. It can be diffused in entropy, but it never can be destroyed. So they agree with that when there's something already that they agree is there. But the mind and the soul of the being, they won't agree it's there, so therefore they can get rid of it and say it's nothing, right? But actually they have no data, and there's no evidence for that. Is the key point to know. So therefore, people who think they're going to be nothing, they should worry a little bit. But on the other hand, it's better than being scared of hell and scared of a mean God who's going to throw you there because you didn't have the right credit card or didn't belong to the right club or in the right religion or whatever it is. That's better than being crazy and scared in that way. All right? So there are three things I think that people do. The hospice is very important. And as I said, and someone who thinks they're going into nothing, and they think that's a safe place. Actually, nobody should start a philosophical argument with them or a scientific argument at that stage, pretty usually. Just get them to relax is key, and that's what these people do really well. And I admire that, and I haven't really held hands and done that sort of thing much myself. And I think it's a very, very precious thing, and the people who do it are heroes and sheroes, both heroes and sheroes, and I deeply admire them, really I do. I don't agree with the philosophical view, but I 100% admire people who help people without challenging that view in that final crisis and transition. Because at least if someone is expecting something not painful and is relaxing, they're safer than people who are frightened and terrified and fighting, madly scrambling to try to hold on to their body and hold on to their senses and hold on to their awakeness. It's like a person who is so scared to fall asleep, it's going to be terrible. They're going to have nightmare, and it's awful. So I really think that's a useful view. Modernity based on materialism is a useful thing, and there is a danger in it, which it's not the topic at the moment, but it's not the danger of those who are actually dying necessarily, not at all. On the other hand, for others of us, it's better to be, it's like, remember Pascal's famous wager, which was made with himself in relation to Christian faith, where he said, if, thinking that you have to believe in God or not, this wager is. So his thing was, if there is no God and I'm just going to be nothing, as his scientific friends were telling him in France in his era, he said, then if I prepare for there being God and then I just become nothing like everybody else, I won't regret it because I won't be there to regret it. So it's a no-lose situation to make that preparation. If there is such a thing as a God and I don't prepare, then I could really be in trouble because I wouldn't know what to expect. and some big thing would be there and I'd be scared of it or something, whatever. And so I might as well prepare, in other words, because you don't have to prepare to be nothing, because it happens automatically. So you can do that about continuity if it comes to you at a stage prior to the time when you've hit the hospice. So the first thing that needs to be done about death and dying is to strengthen the hospice thing, to get doctors to understand they have to let go, people and families to understand they have to let go. There definitely are situations you can find documented in many cases where a person whose body is very broken, they're in deep pain, they want to leave, actually, either because they think there'll be nothing or because they think they'll go to heaven. Doesn't matter which, in a way, in that context. And they don't leave because their family doesn't want them to leave. The doctor is pumping them and doing things to their physical body that's painful to them, and they're kind of, completely crazed with maybe anesthetics and things, but they won't let go of them, type of thing. So there's a maturity about letting go. So that's the first major thing, and I think some of the people in our conference are dealing with that, and that's very important to our society because there's a lot of wasted effort, energy, fear, and terror, and extra Sturmendrang going on about not letting go. Second, when you let go, there are people who help them let go peacefully and nicely, and these are the people who work in the hospices. And I think Zen Buddhism can claim great credit for having helped many people, because many Zen practitioners who've had different levels of satori's through their deep and arduous practice and courageous practice that they do in Zen, wonderful tradition of all different kinds of Zen, of course there are, but they're all good. And they're very good because they can super calm their mind. They can create a field to embrace a person who's slipping away. And in that field, that person feels calm because of the presence of the helper, of the friend, of the hand-holding, blessed Zen hospice worker. And I mean, there are people from other traditions who help them too, and they also get great credit. But there's quite a lot, I think, in the movement from the Zen tradition, and it's really wonderful what they do. I love, Chodo, Campbell, and those folks, Roshi, Joan, Frank Ostaseski, et cetera, starting in San Francisco, and so on. A lot of people, really wonderful. All right, now the third thing, perhaps then, is what my piece, and what I'm speaking about here, and that's coming from the Tibetan misnamed Book of the Dead, actually called Book of Natural Liberation, by learning in the between, by hearing, by really listening, really hearing in the between. And I thought, I have a translation, Tibetan Book of the Dead, that's available, and there's an e-book for people who want to have it on their phone. And but I thought I would then give a little commentary on what is called the root verses of the Six Betweens. And actually, there's a subdivision in this third category of person, whom I'm representing a little bit, and Dr. Nida is representing in another event that we're having here. And that is that the two things are, one is getting people to feel there will be a between, and getting them to prepare in life for it. And getting them to be focused when they actually go on moving toward the bright light, moving toward the thing that is dazzling, and sort of really relaxing and really letting go and not fearing something bright and dazzling. And I think the training there for people is go to a discotheque and just stare at the flashing light, at the stroboscope. And I would, if I had a hospice, I would create a hospice where there'd be strobe training, where you just kind of let your mind go and this light flashes. And I would ask Steven Spielberg and George Lucas and other great movie directors and special effects makers, industrial light and magic people, to make like a film of like 30 minutes of special effects, like Contact, that movie, and others where you have, or 2001, 2010, where you have just lights and rays streaming at you made by film, and you learn to kind of let go and don't get tense when this strong visual thing that's practically unwatchable because it's so dazzling. And that's very good training, because in the between, according to the Tibetan Book of the Between, it is the bright light coming from the heart of the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas. And it doesn't matter if you're not a Buddhist. You might see it coming from the heart of a Jesus figure or a Mother Mary figure if you're a Christian. It might be in the form of some mystic Sufi if you were in the Muslim tradition. It might be in the form of Krishna or Mother Goddess if you're one of the Indian Hindu traditions, or the Tao, one of the Jade Empress, or Lao Tzu if it's in the Taoist tradition, or whatever shamanistic tradition it might be, your totem animal. But it'll be bright and it'll be a little bit scary, and therefore you should learn to let go. Even not only let go with the view that you're going to be nothing, that's a level of courage, that's good. But the next level of courage is let go even if it seems like something a little bit dangerous or dazzling, so you just let yourself go into that and just give it up, kind of. Don't defend, open anyway. And then you'll find instead of being eaten by the dragon that's charging at you, you go right through the dragon's mouth into a field of roses. You know, it changes totally. It's like a dream where you can change from negative to positive if you don't give in to fear. That's the key thing, you know. So that's the first thing of this last third category of helping people to cope with the after-death possible experiences. And it's just to go to the bright, go to the brilliant, go to the being that you think of as safe, and let yourself go even if it seems a little powerful to you or scary or whatever. Never go, don't be seduced, in other words, by some little hideout, and don't run away, and let go of fear. Try to let go of fear. And actually, if you've been going even into nothing in a regular hospice without the Tibetan science to help you, but if you know, which is a majority of these things, going into being nothing is also a courageous thing. Just to let go and let that take a hold of you. It's not nothing that you see, but it's kind of giving up seeing things. That's also courageous. So you're in the right vein if you're being helped to do that. But then if there happens to be a big, bright, explosive, you think like you're floating into the sun or something, just float in there and it won't burn you. It's the key point. Nothing can harm you. It's like in a dream. You can dream being burned in a fire, but then you wake up and there's no blister. So training in dreams is very important, as you'll see. But anyway, so then the third thing is now what we're going to do in the rest of this talk. And that is, how do you use time in life to become more fully aware of things? And there are two things that I do there. And the first is to introduce you to the 6 betweens, so that you begin to realize that right now in life you're in a between. You're in a between when you're having an argument with your loved one and you're right and he or she thinks she's right or he's right, and you're having a fight and you're getting angry, etc. And the between there is you let go being right. You give it up. You, like they say in the hip-hop world, you know, give it up, meaning clap for the other one. Just let go. Don't try to hold your place hard. Just let go. That's great training. You know, let go your anger. Don't act it out. Don't act out your righteousness. Even your right, let go. That doesn't change your being right. If you're confident, really confident, you can let go. So those are all betweens, kind of betweens. The between skill comes from that kind of life. When you're generous, you give a gift, something you value, $10. You give it away. You let it go. That is subliminal training for letting go. For either into nothing, in case that's the reality, or into the glorious light road, the yellow brick road, into heaven, into the heart of enlightened beings, into the heart of savior beings, whatever your religion may be, or whatever your worldview, whatever your nature view is. Okay? So now, first between, we're right here together in it. Hey, now when I'm reading the root verses of the 6 betweens, which is a preparatory kind of prayer of the book of natural liberation, not the book of the dead, book of the living. Hey, now when the life between dawns upon me, it's dawned upon us, because we're changing all the time. We're in the life between. We've been born, and then we adopted this and that personality, and then we learned this and that, and then we had this and that experience, and then we changed and changed and changed. And we saw this and that movie, and it changed us. We saw that work of art, it changed us. We had that relationship, it changed us. We're always changing, because we're in the life between. I will abandon laziness, as life has no more time, And that we get from meditating on the imminence of death, in the sense that, look, we drive down highways at 75 miles an hour. Whoops, 65 miles an hour. And we're only 3 feet from an oncoming, rushing truck that could leap over the dividing line. Or we could have a moment of carelessness and bang, we'd be finished. So life is that fragile. So there's no more time. So live every moment. If you really understand this is a life between, you live every moment as if it was the last. That means you want quality moments. You want to be in the moment. You want to be loving in that moment. You want to be loved in that moment. You want to know that your loved one knows that you love them in that moment. You want to have quality living. You don't want to just be living on a production line, being somebody else's robot. And then later you go home and have a moment of quality time, but by that time you'll be so exhausted, you'll anesthetize yourself with 3 beers and the commercials and the news, and you'll be terrified and dissatisfied, which are the meditations of the TV, frightened and dissatisfied and greedy. Those are what two states they try to cultivate in you, the TV people who own the TV broadcasting. So I will abandon laziness as life has no more time. Unwavering, I will enter the path of learning, thinking, and meditating. I will try to develop the knowledge of the real meaning of the moment, which is joy, bliss, love. That's what it is. That's what the moment means. That's how you want to be in the moment, if it's your last, for sure. You don't want to be frightened. You don't want to be angry. You don't want to be dissatisfied. You want to give everything to that moment. That's what you want to do. And taking perceptions and mind as the path. I will realize the 3 bodies of enlightenment. That is to say, I'll realize my oneness with the greatest beings in the universe. The Buddhas, the gods, the saviors, the savioresses, the goddesses, the Buddhesses. I want to be one with all of them. And they have 3 bodies. That's a theory. You don't need to worry about it. We don't have time. This once that I have obtained the precious human body is not the time to stay on the path of distractions, of just diverting myself and distracting myself. It's not the time, okay? So that is now, you're living as a between. And we are living in the life between. And once we live in the life between, we will be much more fully alive. It's like we'll become, I love this slogan of mine, actually. We will become the dying live, no longer the living dead. How's that? By letting yourself die each moment, letting go of the previous moment. No, I'm not pissed off anymore. No, I'm not dissatisfied anymore. If everything I want is right here, if I only can see it, if I have the wisdom to know it. And I'm therefore going to devote myself to knowing that, and knowing that my beloved, my love for him, her, it, they, planet Earth itself, is the meaning of this moment. That's what it is. Hey, now so that's the first between, okay? Hey, now when the dream between dawns upon me, I will give up corpse-like sleeping in delusion and mindfully enter unwavering the experience of reality. The dream is very important if you want to be conscious in awake, when you're awake, if you want to be lucidly awake. That is to say, live your moment by moment in full energy and full bliss, full joy, then full freedom. Then you will train yourself and educate yourself by trying to remember your dream and become a lucid dreamer. So you will, every night when you fall asleep, the last thing you do is you think, okay, in case I dream, and actually you pretty much do every night, but we just don't remember. So even when I dream, I'm going to know I'm dreaming, and I'm going to use the dream to figure something new out. I'm going to discover things. I'm going to learn about life by learning what to be lucid, to be awake, to be aware in the dream without jumping back to being awake. But I'll stay in the dream, but I'll then learn whatever message my deep mind is telling me in the dream. And others, maybe deep minds or vibes are coming to me, I'll learn in the dream. So to become a lucid dreamer, it's a skill anyone can develop. You don't have to be a psychic or a yogi. But it is a kind of yoga, a life life between yoga, the living between yoga, the life between, to use the dream between as a very deep place to learn. It's very important. So, and then to cultivate mindfulness in the dream. Conscious of dreaming, I will enjoy the changes as clear light. And clear light, of course, is a wonderful concept of Buddhist science, that the reality of the world is an infinite energy. And there's no problem if we know how to draw on it. It is inexhaustible infinite energy, where there's no shortage of energy in the world. We don't have to buy in the form of gas and oil. We just have to live it as what's called clear light, which is pure transparency. It's an amazing kind of, we live in a diamond world of diamond, actually. But it's hard to explain. It's short, so I don't want. Not sleeping mindlessly like an animal, I will cherish the practice merging sleep and realization. So that's the second between. Third, hey, now when the meditation between dawns upon me, and this is when you're awake, but if you cultivate meditation, you go into a change of your mind, a more self-conscious, self-purposeful change of your mind through meditation. And you can learn to do that through inner self-awareness. I will abandon the host of distracting errors, focus in extreme free experience, that is, cultivate open-mindedness without releasing or controlling, and achieve stability in the creation and perfection stages. Those are very advanced stages of meditation. But so he just puts it there, but you don't have to push it that far. Just observing your own thinking and not being imprisoned by your own inner impulses, because you notice that they are not the whole of you. You have an impulse, I have to do this, but actually you could also do without doing that. You begin to develop more inner freedom when you practice mindfulness. And people are doing that vastly and widely. And it comes from all kinds of other traditions. It's not only a Buddhist thing. Doesn't mean you have to be a Buddhist. And achieve giving up busyness. Now, one pointed in meditation, I won't surrender to the power of erroneous addictive emotions. Okay? You know, misguided emotions like hatred, terror, fear, greed, obsession, you know, this kind of fanatic, being a fanatic ideology person. I won't succumb to them. So those are the three living betweens that we use when we understand about what death really is, which is only bigger life. That's what death is. And when we understand that, we realize we have to learn to be bigger in this life. And then we'll be able to best deal with and use the opportunity of the death between transition. We'll be able to use that. And now I'm going to the fourth between in this verse, and then I will elaborate a little bit more on that in conclusion. I'm not wearing my watch because my watch talks to me in the middle of giving a talk, but I don't know what the time will be. But I hope to have the time to do this. Hey, now when the death point between dawns upon me, that's the moment, the real definition of death, called the death point between. When you have an inner experience, that's when you know it's real death. It's like that line. It has no time. It's like a line. In a way, it's not there. It's just when you go to bigger life. But it's when you leave this particular body. That's really when real death, and there's a scientific definition of it. But anyway, hey, now when the death point between dawns upon me, I will give up the preoccupations of the old, desiring, greedy mind. Enter unwavering the experience of the clarity of the teachings, and transmigrate into the birthless space of inner awareness. About to lose this created body of flesh and blood, I will realize it to be impermanent illusion. So, in other words, when I hit the death point between, that's when I must best let go of like inhabiting my body, and do so willingly. And here is where in the death point between instruction, I just want to read it to you. Hey, noble one, this is what you say to a person when they're dying. This is what you say to yourself when you imagine the moment in the future where you will die. And what real death is, it's when you have completely lost traction in this body and these senses. You can't see anymore with the eyes, cannot hear with the ears, you cannot smell with the nose, you cannot taste with the tongue, you cannot feel texture with the skin, with any membrane or the skin. But you still have, it's a point where you still have an inner mental awareness, And you still feel like you're sort of inside your central nervous system, according to their scientific report of those who have lucidly died, like a person who knows how to lucidly dream. They sort of know they're unconscious, and then they know they're dreaming, by knowing that they're unconscious. If it seems impossible, if you're unconscious, you're unconscious. But actually, there's a way at the super subtle level you can know it. And they hit that, they have achieved that. So, hey, noble one. And he called someone noble because at the deepest level, everyone is noble, everyone is friendly, everyone is altruistic and loving. So when you're loving, you're noble because you take care of the other. Like noblesse oblige about others, So, hey, noble one, hey, my friend, you could just say. You named so-and-so. You named Tom, Paul, Dick and Harry, Joan, Jane, Elizabeth, whichever one it is, Now the time has come. You still can hear your name from within your dream state because you're like someone who's becoming awake in a dream. You don't know it through your hearing, through your ears, but you know it through your inner dream ear, you could say, because you still have that kind of dream-like awareness until you've actually reached the death point. Now the time has come for you to seek the way. Just as your breath stops, the objective clear light of the first between will dawn as previously described to you by your teacher because you had the help of someone preparing you. Your outer breath stops and you experience reality, stark and void-like space. Your immaculate naked awareness, dawning clear and void without horizon or center. At that instant, you yourself must recognize it as yourself. You must stay with that experience. I will describe it again to you at that moment. So this is penultimate. You haven't died yet when you say that, or when you think that to yourself, because you prepared that way. But here's what you say at the very moment. Now you see a mirage. So what it means is in your inner mind's eye, you can't quite recognize whatever visionary things occur. And you're not through the eye consciousness, but through an inner simulated eye consciousness. And so you say, you see everything's like a mirage. You can't quite make out what it is. But there are different things flipping through your, that place in your super subtle dream brain. You're flipping through different visions, but you can't quite recognize any of them. So your naming thing is happening, but it's not attaching to anything until you're hallucinating or seeing a mirage. That's the sign of earth dissolving in water. At the same time, your body feels like it's going to sleep. It's like, if when you sit uncomfortably and your leg tingles, and then if you keep staying in that because you can't move for some reason, when you get up, you have to kind of rub your leg to get sensation back on the skin because your leg went to sleep. You know what I'm saying? Well, now you feel the whole body goes to sleep. Then you feel you're in a field of smoky, misty, cloudy reality. That's water dissolving into fire because there's a little warmth associated with it. So they say smoke rather than mist. Then you see swirling of little flashing lights, which they call a swarm of fireflies. So that's the sign of the fire dissolving into wind, which is everything in motion. And it's where you feel like you've just completely come apart, but you still are not completely dead. The candle flame is the sign of wind dissolving into consciousness. So now that's pure, and that consciousness is a consciousness like pure space. So everything is space. And it's like, it's not like your body is floating in space. You no longer feel you have a body. You are the space. And you shouldn't think that because you are the space that you're nothing. But in a way, if you greet being in space as a space of nothingness, that's okay too. That's fine. Just know that the nothingness is you. So don't think you've just lost everything and be frightened or that you are something other than this space. Just be the space. That's very cool. Then suddenly the space becomes brightened up. It's no longer, it doesn't kind of obscure space. It becomes like white space, moonlight. Everything is some nice moonlight. And you kind of relax in the moonlight. Then you get, again, your habitual nervousness. I'm used to being a boundaried being, And there's some things outside my skin that I'm scared of that might hurt me. And even though you're now an awareness in white space, which is just an awareness of white space, you want to sort of go everywhere in the white space. You want to be aware in all of it. So your awareness expands and it brightens and it turns orange like sunshine, like dawn, red and orange. And you're like, but there's no heat. But it's so bright, even the brightness almost feels like heat. But it doesn't, there's no sense of texture, so you don't feel hot. Okay? And it's now sunlight, and it's like you're in the sun. You are the sun, you will feel. It's kind of cool. Not cool, kind of hot. But then it becomes a little too hot, too bright, and you think of darkness, and you don't mind that, and then you see like black light. It's like a light almost. And you let go into it because you're unafraid. You feel a little fear, but you just control it. It can't be nothing, because there is no nothing. You remember that. And there are all these bright colors happening in what you were in a space like nothing. So you deal with that. And then finally you come into a pre-dawn twilight sky. This is where you are suddenly aware that you are all of it. And you completely give yourself to it. And if you can do that, you become a Buddha, actually. Because you are everything. And everything is in that transparency. It's like you're in a world of pure crystal or diamond. But everything is made of it, and you're made of it. So it's not like there's anything other than yourself. It's all the one thing, and all your loved ones, and everyone is there. And they look like jewel beings. And you can see through one to see the next one. And it's like, it's indescribable, actually. So therefore, I should not waste too much time trying to describe it. This is the realm of clear light, or total transparency, and total security, and total bliss. It's like a giant orgasm also. A diamond orgasm, if you can imagine it, which you can't. But the describing is good because it means you give up whatever you're holding onto at any point. And the more you give up, the more you are, and the more you have. You try to think that. So that's what you do at the point, and that is death. And really what that is you have become the complete and total life force, rather than become nothing. But that nothing that you become, you sort of go through the field of nothing, and you become everything. And it's all you, and you even think you're everybody else. You see them all there, and you're them. And you're them as pure love, and they're fine. But then you notice also they don't, you see from their expressions, or you feel their expressions from within themselves, because you have infinite empathy, actually. And you realize they don't think they're fine. They're somehow mixed up. They don't realize they're also this diamond joy, that you feel, that you are, and that you realize is the real. It is. But it doesn't crush the unreal real either. So it's pure freedom, actually. It's weird, and it's inexplicable. There's no word, there's no one simple formula, there's no even saying Om or something, or Amen or something. You might say these in greeting, a feeling of letting go into the bliss, but the word is not the bliss. But it's part of it, but not it. So now they say, hey, noble one. So now if you're reading it to someone, but now you already know everything. And that's the definition of death. So it's nothing to be afraid of. The only thing to be afraid of is fear itself. Who said that? Roosevelt, our real Bodhisattva president. Among our Bodhisattva presidents, he said that. And that's true. Fear is the only thing to fear. Therefore, don't be afraid. And then if you're really free of fear, you'll be Buddha. But actually, most of us normally will be a bit afraid of the full level of being everybody else, and will clamp down. And so at that time, the instructor tells us, or we tell ourselves, the way of staying as close as possible to that vast, diamond, orgasmic, loving, joyous, blissful energy, infinite energy. Nothing can stop that love energy of being that. And all other beings who have been Buddhas are there. And that all other beings, even the suffering ones, are going to be Buddhas. We'll know that completely at that time. So there's the future and the past are here in the infinite moment of that awareness, which is death. That's what death is. So it's an infinite life, actually. That's what it is. But we can't bear the infinity unless we really have cultivated the ability of it. Usually we can't. So then no matter how do we tone it down to be one of many in that field with a dim, unremembered memory of it, that we sort of are spending our next human life. The humanoid is the best. We could go and become a heaven being and a god, but that would not be as good as being another human, because we need the vulnerability to make our compassion move us to get strong enough to overwhelm that whatever trace of fear might be instinctually left in us. In another human life is where we really want to go. But then we want to be in a better neighborhood. Then we want to be with better teachers. Then we want to be in a better culture at a better time. We want to be in Shambhala on planet Earth, not in pre-Shambhala, oil-soaked, decaying, overheated Earth. We don't want to be there at that time. We want to be in a time of fulfillment and joy, which in a way is already here, because we're going to conquer this oil disease for sure. We are. We're about to do it. We're on the brink of it every instant. That we're certain that we're going to do it. We are going to do it. But we have to see it, certainly. Every single one of us has to become the poet that sees it in the middle of the seeming not being there. Because that gives us the peacefulness and the love and the courage and the joy to non-violently persuade the crazed ones that they don't need to sell any more things to anybody. And they don't need to wreck any more things to exploit and extract anything from anywhere. They just have to relax and enjoy. Hey, noble one. So now we say to these beings, now you have arrived at so-called death. So you should, and I'm translating ancient writing here, from ancient scientists, not wish-fulfilling, pre-modern, superstitious weirdos. Although they may have elements of that, like we all do, like no 13th floor in your apartment building, or no 11th floor if you're in France. Hey, noble one, now you have arrived at so-called death. So you should conduct yourself according to your conception of the Spirit of Enlightenment. The Spirit of Enlightenment means the determination to be a Buddha, to stick with that vastness of life where you are a self that is open to being simultaneously everyone else and is therefore with and for everyone else in the absolute most loving and wise and competent and powerful possible way, that yet is not omnipotently imposing anything on any of them, but is helping them bring out their own same Buddhahood that they have, and their own oneness with the blissful, awesome reality of which is all good, which is what reality is. That's all this that we're trying to, everyone is trying to be introduced to, from all the religions of the world, from all the ideologies of the world. They're trying to introduce them to the goodness of the world. But a few people trapped in delusion keep trying to convince them that it's horrible so that they can exploit them and terrorize them. That's the problem. So this person you're telling, don't forget your conception of the Spirit of Enlightenment, which means I'm going to be like that. I'm going to be the all good, because that's what reality is. I'm going to be real, in other words. That's the conception of the spiritual. I'm going to be really real. So I'm just going to live love and be joy and be bliss. That's it. Alas, I have arrived at the time of what people call death, which means that my human life, when I'm trying to open, I cut short my progress. It seems like I cut short because I lose this embodiment in which I made the progress. But actually, the more I can embrace the freedom even from this body and the ability to give this even away, this life away, the more I'll be the infinite body. From now on, relying on this death, using it as an opportunity for a quantum leap, I will develop my spirit only by contemplating the conception of the Spirit of Enlightenment, of love and compassion for all life. Intolerance of anybody's suffering, because that they suffer, and of course, willing to remove it. I take it upon myself and love that they try to share with them any bliss that I discover for the sake of the whole space full of beings. I must attain perfect Buddha, all beings, not just humans, all of them. I must attain all the microbiome bacteria and even the viruses, which I think are somewhat alive, as we've all noticed. That one that came over there from the bat cave, it's been giving us a problem in it because it wants to be living in more of us. But that's why it's being nice now and having only mild symptoms. Because it doesn't want to kill us, actually. And I will accomplish the purposes of all, I will attain the supreme accomplishment of the Great Seal. The Great Seal means the orgasmic, loving embrace of all animate and inanimate reality and us. That's what it means. A giant, vast joy bubble. That's the Great Seal, it's called. Like it's sealing, the goodness seal. And I will accomplish the purposes of all beings. If I don't attain that, then at the time of the between, I will recognize it as the between. That means after the next time I lose the next body, I will realize that between as the Great Seal, body of communion of all life. And I will accomplish the purposes of all the infinite space full of beings by manifesting whatsoever is needed to educate, to tame, and calm whomsoever. Thus, never losing the willpower of that spiritual conception, you should remember the experience of whatever instructions you have previously practiced. Hey, noble one, you named Tom, listen here. Now the pure, clear light of the reality between dawns upon you. Recognize it. Hey, noble one, this your present, conscious, natural, clear, free, void awareness, this presence in clear, void, freedom without any objectivity other than yourself of substance, sign, or color. Just this is the reality, the mother, Buddha all-around goodness, your ultimate beloved, if you think of yourself as male, or your ultimate father if you think of yourself as female. And this your conscious awareness, natural, void freedom, not succumbing to a false annihilative voidness, not a nothingness here at this point. Just your own conscious awareness, unceasing, bright, distinct, and vibrant. Just this awareness is the Father, Buddha, all-around goodness. You're if you're thinking of yourself as a male, the mother all-around goodness if you're thinking of yourself as a female. So consciousness, subjectivity, and consciousness as objectivity are male-female union, infinite union. That's what it is. Just this present, which is the life force, infinite life. Just this presence of the indivisibility of your awareness as naturally insubstantial freedom, and the vibrant, bright presence of your conscious awareness. Just this is the Buddha's body of reality, which is your Buddha body of reality. Buddha's body is not his and not yours, it's yours. Your awareness thus abides in this vast mass of light, of clarity, freedom, indivisible. You are free of birth or death. Just this, there's no birth and no death. Just this is, and you are the birth and death of all beings, and you want them to find freedom from birth and death in their birth and death, so it becomes simply a blissful play. Just this is the Buddha changeless light. It's where you realize that everything is pure light, and it's you. And so you can focus down and just be a particular light. You can be all light. It's no difference to you in a way. And you can share that all light with all others too. That's no problem, because that's why it's inconceivable. Awareness, your own conscious awareness as purity, nature as the Buddha. You recognize this, your own conscious awareness as purity, nature as Buddha, as enlightenment, as awakeness. You yourself beholding your own awareness. That is to dwell in the inner realization of all Buddhas. So good. So this is sort of the deepest level. This is what you can look forward to in death. And in a way, the nihilism ideology of the secular humanist is not a bad steering line for that. Because actually the experience of overcoming fear of nothingness, in other words, fear of seemingly to be obliterated, which can be controlled by the Eureka newsflash that I gave you earlier in this talk, book of the natural liberation through learning in the between. This is the biggest thing to learn. There is no nothing. So that's when you know that there's no nothing, but it seems to be nothing, your fear of nothing, you can overcome that. That's what that knowledge overcomes it. So it sort of penetrates through the idea that nothing is going to be a trap where you'll always be stuck. Yeah, you'll be unconscious, you'll be asleep forever. In a way, even you might even crave the trap. But then your subliminal awareness is more practical, and you know it would be a trap if that's all you are and have. So then you can do a second fear, which is a fear of everything. Fear of anything. Where you can be everyone, and yourself among everyone. As a living Buddha, bliss being. And that's the second level of fear to overcome. But the first level of fear, if you really get it by knowing there's no nothing when it seems like nothing, can catapult you into the second one. So it's not bad. It gets spiritual. That's why Dalai Lama considers the secular humanist, scientist, which unfortunately most of the scientists are, he considers them another world religion. And in any meeting at Assisi, in the spirit of St. Francis, of the meeting that the popes also go to, and Francis will go. I think Benedict was a little scared of it, but he did go, but he was a little scared. But Francis will not be scared, and go, and all religions, everybody, Jesus is allowed to be everybody's friend without them having to join their organization. Whether they join it or not, he's going to be their friend. Whether you join the Buddha organization or not, Buddha is your friend. Whether you join the shamanic organization of the totem of the great Naga, the great python, whatever, the python is going to be your friend anyway. You follow me? Whether you, whatever it is, you know, Allah is your friend. He's not going to obliterate you or burn you to a cinder. He loves you. So then this is, and then the Book of the Dead begins a whole series of, well, if you miss this one and you go that one, down to well, here's a womb, and that womb, and don't get stuck in the wrong womb. And then you get into where you're cruising up and down Fifth Avenue or Sunset Boulevard or Champs-Élysées or Piccadilly, and you see through everything. As a between being, you're like Superman or Superwoman, and you can see through all walls. So you see all these couples getting it on. So pick a good womb, zoom, join them. Join a good couple. Don't join some horrible Brexit couple. Join a re-exit couple, exit Brexit couple, a re-entry couple, okay? Join them who are ready to love everyone, not just the English, all right? Join a couple that will introduce you to great Lama who can teach you how to navigate in the between, or a great psychologist who may not be a Lama, but they may be a great psychologist who can teach you lucid dreaming in an REM lab, where they help you learn lucid dreaming, because everybody can be a psychic, everybody can be a lucid dreamer. You don't have to be a special psychic or a weird hippie or stoned out. Everyone can do it. So you want to be born in a womb of a couple that will allow you this kind of full level of human inner as well as outer education. And that doesn't necessarily mean very religious, because you can have religious who just insist on you believe this outer thing and don't look inside, because it's too scary in there. Satan will get you if you look inside. You can have religions that are stupid like that, which is against their founder, because they were the ultimate inside lookers. That's why their teachings lasted for so long. And the spiritual humanist who allows you to look inside is the one, not the spiritual who demands that you just take this pill, keep taking the blue pill only, and buy their product. That's not the one you want. That's not the materialist that you want, okay? So I don't have time to do more. So this is the thing. So to re-summarize, those who teach, the hospice teachers, and prepare us before we get to the hospice to be ready for the hospice teachers, and even if we're doctors, prepare us, is the first level of hero or shiro who are helping our culture grow up by introducing us to the immediacy of death, meaning living in the face of death, living with death on our shoulder, which means be really alive here and now. The power of now. Eckhart Tolle, he's not a Buddhist. He's not saying you have to be a Buddhist. He's saying just watch me on Oprah. And do it. And that's all you need. You don't need to join any religion. You just be open to now. Be in the now. That's what death will tell you. Live every moment as if it were your last. So that's the first ones. Preparing us for that and developing the institutions to help us die consciously and die peacefully and die happily and tell the people who are attached to us to let us go generously. And don't, of course, urge us ahead. Get on out of here, nasty Uncle Joe. But no, it's all right, Uncle Joe. We'll cook the turkey without you, Aunt Jane, and we'll think of you, and we'll offer you a plateful, your memory, and we'll know that you're still there with us. Some heaven. We'll send you to heaven on the journey. So these are all things benefits that come when you stop being in denial of death. Okay? And then you're not going to want to go in somebody's army and kill other people because you realize you're going to get killed too soon. So you want quality time. You don't want to die on a battlefield in anger and fear and hatred. You want to die peacefully in bed, or floating in a swimming pool, talking to your loved ones and blessing them and being blessed by them. That's how you want to go. So then the oligarchs will not be able to draft you into their stupid armies fighting over nothing. Just their own power is the reason they're pushing you. That's all. They're not concerned about the country. Oh, they would let you live well in the country. They don't care about you. They're using you to just sort of, and they get so paranoid they just get drunk all the time or something. They drink and drink and drink and send you to your death because they're actually living dead themselves. So don't let yourself be ruled by living dead people who are hiding behind layers and layers of security and trying to avoid you and send you off on a battlefield for their friend, the other oligarch in the next country who's sending their people, not letting them live, sending their living dead people to fight your living dead people, pretending that their living dead people are the enemy rather than you are the enemy. Oligarch. But it's never too late, oligarch. You can devolve your power. You can relax and join, and people will be grateful. They won't hate you if you do. But if you kill too many of them, then it's going to be like Mussolini. Really bad news. Seriously, they'll be angry. But it's not too late. You can devolve. Go to France. Change your name. Change your face even, in case you have gotten too far. Okay? Please, oligarch 1 and 2. Don't insist. We Tibetans, we love China. They do. They love the Chinese. For 1,000 years, 2,000 years, Chinese honored the spiritual beings in Tibet, who was the source of the river flow that keeps their life alive. The Indians honored. The Persians, everybody honors somebody who's up near heaven like that, who is somehow breathing when there's less oxygen, and praying, and spinning the wheel of prayer. Everyone loves them. No one likes the oligarch, the dictators. That's a crazy idea that some dictator is going to let go. Never. They don't be dictator to start with. But once they are, let them let go then. Let's see them do it. And allow democracy, allow multi-party system. Okay, and not let their security apparatus like KGB regress back to having a dictatorship. Okay? That's what we need now. And we shouldn't be owned by our security apparatus in free countries either. Okay? So, love to everyone. And, oh yeah, I was summarizing, I apologize, it's old age. Okay? So that's the maturity of the culture. Then the wonderful people helping those who have the main ideology of the country, the high church of the country, is scientific materialism, and enabling them to find that nothingness and make it humanized, and to never mind and not be scared, and to die peacefully and calmly so they can then see the light, even if it looks dark to start with. And then third, the people who then can give some advice to the few who are open to hedging their bets about how to handle the post-death experience, which is to go to the light. Be faithful to the light. Never mind whichever form people say it's going to appear to you in. That doesn't matter. Whatever you're used to and you think of as good, go to that. If it's Marilyn Monroe rather than the goddess Mother Mary, then either one, never mind. Flow into her embrace. If it's, Keanu Reeves and not the Sufi master, Khidr, then go there. Never mind. Embrace them. Whoever. Secular Buddhas, the celebrities. If it's the great owl or the bear, my motto, my totem is the bear. I live in Bearsville. I have a bear totem. That's my totem. There he is, looks at me. Okay, bear. I'm not going to be. I am scared of you, but I'm not going to be scared of being scared of you. Okay. That's what we do. And then those finally, the fourth level, where those who really get the idea, then really live without denial of death and really want to be in the moment, and therefore realize that they're already in the bardo while being alive, and they live as the dying life in the moment, and they become the nodes of the bliss and the love and the awareness and the calmness and the peacefulness and the non-violence and the non-harmfulness, and who make that their yoga, the Vajra yogis and yoginis. That's the fourth and fifth and sixth and 10th levels. Okay, all right. Thank you very much, and thank you all you other people who've been in the conference and who are giving your contribution from whichever of those 4 or 5 levels, all of which immensely valuable and loving and brave and intelligent and wise and joyful. Thank you. Okay? Om Mani Padme Hum.